Sweating.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The following content contains adult language and humor that is not suitable for viewers under the age of 18. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The views and opinions expressed during the following video content are those of the individual and may not reflect those of others.
Pacific414 Pop Talk is here. Back and relax and join the conversation. We've got Baron, Norman, Tax, Cash Money, 007, and even Mike too. Pop culture, entertainment, news and reviews. Discussions will have opinions made from the panel to the chat. Everyone is welcome here. Reactions, watch parties, and special guests. We like to have a good time. Pacific414 Pop Talk is underway. Pull up a seat, we're inviting you to stay. Articles, collectibles, reviews, you say. Baron, Cash, and Mike bring the fun tonight. Now sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Don't forget to like or comment below. We almost forgot to share out the show. Pacific414 Pop Talk is one of a kind. It's true.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome one and all to this edition of Pacific414 Pop Talk, coming to you live on the Pacific414 YouTube channel, the Rumble channel, and also over on X, along with Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective and Cash Money 007. I am your host, Mike, and tonight we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of probably one of the greatest movies of all time. And that movie is Back to the Future, starring Christopher Lloyd as Dr. Emmett L. Brown, and of course, Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly. Now, gentlemen, I know we've all seen this movie multiple times over and over again, but do either one of you recall the first time you saw this movie?
I wish I could say that I could, but I mean, I don't even think I seen this one in the theater. I think the first time I actually seen this one was on regular TV.
Yep, me too. Yeah, I never saw this in the theater.
Yeah, and this is one of those movies where you could catch it on regular TV, whether it be on network TV, cable TV. You know, of course, HBO would have it at times, Showtime would have it at times, but I do remember the first time I saw it. I don't recall it being on opening day, but I do recall it being at a time when the movie was still out in the theater. And I was 7 years old at the time. It was my mom, sister, and I. We went to a movie theater in Escondido, California, and watched the movie. Fell in love with the movie when it finally came to video stores. I constantly rented the movie, and my dad's all, "You're renting that again?" But that's how much I love the movie. I love the premise of building a time machine, going back in time, seeing your parents as they were when they were your age, and just how well written this movie is too.
Well, there was also in the beginning of the movie when he first comes through. There's also a bit of an Easter egg for something I think I can't remember if it was not amazing stories, but there were some amazing tales or something like that. So they have the scene where he's in that radiation suit, and they actually have that in an Amazing Tales old school like comic, the ones that were almost like magazine sized.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, even when Marty first gets back to 1955 and he's on the Peabody farm, and no, Paul Peabody says when he's looking at the DeLorean inside his barn, it looks like an airplane without wings. And then the kid says, "That ain't no airplane. Look," and he shows the tails cover, and of course, the flying saucer looks like the DeLorean, and the radiation suit looks exactly like you see on the cover. But before we do get underway with the watch party, and gentlemen, if you haven't clicked on it already, the Cosme link is in the private chat. If I need to put it in there again, I will. And for everybody who is joining us, the Cosme link is pinned to the top of the chat on YouTube and Rumble. And it will be there during the duration of the film. I do want to say hello to Jet Sparks, who says Back to the Future is 40 years old. Holy shit, I didn't notice. What a milestone. Yeah, it is a milestone then. Back to the Future is 40 years old. And another movie that Steven Spielberg was involved with is Jaws. And that turned 50 just a few days ago. And I do want to say hello to Lady Mist. And Jet Sparks is saying, I've seen the movie multiple times on TV, but crazily enough, my local movie theater actually played it back in 2021, and I can only imagine what people in 1985 were thinking when they first saw it. People were liking it, from what I recall. And Jesse Torres says, Back to the Future. Want to feel old, guys? We're closer to 2065 than we are to 1985. Oh, how true that is. But if you gentlemen are ready,
Yeah, man.
I will go ahead and hit play.
Hello, Lady Mist.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And of course, as many are probably aware of, it wasn't Michael J. Fox who was originally in the role of Marty McFly, even though he was the first choice. It was actually Eric Stoltz who was in the movie to start with, but he wasn't getting along with director Robert Zemeckis, and the studio didn't think he was a good fit, so they fired him.
Funny thing is, though, is some of the scenes, because Crispin Glover, is it Crispin Glover? No, Glover. Crispin Glover was such a pain to work with that some scenes they couldn't reshoot it enough times with Marty, or should I say Michael J. Fox's Marty, that they wound up using some of the Stoltz footage that they had already done.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, yeah, because there's a few scenes I think with Biff too, where you could tell that Marty is much taller than Michael J. Fox is.
Mm-hmm. And also, as we're seeing here, as we're getting a look through Doc's house, or at least his garage in this case, you do see little hints of things that are to come in the movie. You see the one clock with the guy hanging off the hand, and yeah, I was just bringing that up too, Jesse. It's amazing how many story elements are foreshadowed in the opening credits, either verbally or visually. We didn't realize the first time we saw the movie. Sometimes it takes more than one viewing of a film to catch things.
Well, I don't know
Okay.
if this ever happened to you, Mike. Like, you could sit there and watch a movie. I don't care if you watch it 20, 30 times, but every once in a while, you're rewatching it for the umpteenth time, and you might catch something you've never caught before because you're not like just blindly watching. Like, you might actually be zoning into different things on the film that you don't normally look at in all the other viewings, and then you
Mhm.
spot something you've never noticed before.
Yep. It's happened to me. I mean, there are times I have my nostalgia glasses on when I'm watching a movie that I enjoy. Then other times I'm looking at it to, you know, critique it. And it's good to see Baron. He says dropped an 88-mile-per-hour like for you. Thank you, Baron. I hope everything goes well for the long suffering surgery tomorrow.
Me too.
Godspeed.
All right, brother.
Yeah,
Take
and
it easy. And I'll see you
think,
Saturday.
Michael J. Fox had a good career, really great television career, definitely.
Yeah, he did. And I mean, just think about it. He was filming this and Family Ties at the same time.
It wasn't he basically just running across the lot at the end of Family Ties?
Pretty much. They would pick him up after filming Family Ties. Then they would drive him to Universal. He would film there, then go get what little sleep he would get and film Family Ties. Do it all in a cycle.
Yeah, and when you take the tour over at Universal, I think they still have, of course, the area with the clock tower and the.
Yeah, they do. I mean,
I don't think they've
a lot of
changed that. I haven't been there in a number of years, but I don't think they've changed it. So
a lot of that area was burned down during the
Mhm.
fire. I think it was in what 2008.
Yeah, probably.
But some of that backlot that you see isn't there.
Yep.
Yes, the clock tower is still there. It's got a different front on it, but the pillars that are on the clock tower are still there. Because I've seen people who have taken the tour and they've had a chance to actually walk up to the clock tower, and when they walk behind it, they go, "Oh, the pillars are still here." Yeah, we just
Mhm.
put this facade in front of it for another movie. And Jesse Torres says, I don't know if this is true, but allegedly Back to the Future has it in its contract with Universal that the film can't be remade until Fox,
Yes.
Lloyd, Zemeckis, Gale have all died.
I think it's they don't want it to ever be remade. I thought it was something in their clause that.
Yeah, I know it was something in the clause for Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, but I don't know if it's in the clause for Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, quite honestly, I mean, it's the whole part about cinema that really does drive me nuts is the fact that they feel like they always got to remake all these things for a modern audience. Look, man,
Yeah.
Right. right.
most younger people I've known that have gone back and they've rewatched some of these older films that they've heard, oh, it's super cheesy and this, that, and the other thing. Most of them are actually pretty impressed with it. And a lot of these movies over time, they still hold up. They don't need to be remade because they're a
No.
product of their time.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly. I agree, man.
I don't want to see a remake of Back to the Future.
Well, the problem is that they just don't. Even stuff like the Naked Gun and so on. It's just. It's one of those things where are you guys going to respect the material? If you don't, then it's a problem. I mean, it's crazy to me, like all this stuff that's being remade, and even before this, like it's gotten so much worse. It's just like, oh, we got to remake this. It's like, no, like you said, Tommy, this stuff holds up, man.
Well, just
You
like
know.
Jesse's saying here, maybe the joke is none of them wanted to be alive to see films be remade without them. The thing is, who can you see in the role of Doc Brown nowadays? Who can you see in the role of Marty
I don't
nowadays?
know.
Who can you see in the role of
Right.
Principal Strickland?
Yes.
I mean, James Tolkien, 85, he's in Back to the Future. 86, Top Gun. 87, Masters of the Universe.
That's
He
true.
may be a character actor, but he showed
Right.
up in a lot of movies and TV shows, and he's
Yeah.
still alive.
You're a slacker, yeah. He's a slacker.
And here's
That-
Huey Lewis.
Yeah.
Oh.
The soundtrack on this one was absolutely great too.
Yep.
I was reading somewhere where they were talking about people on this set when Michael J. Fox was playing the guitar. They said it was atrocious sounding.
And that's actually some members of Huey Lewis in the news on stage with Michael J. Fox right now. And of course, they're playing The Power of Love.
Yeah, too darn loud.
Come on, man. Boo. Too loud.
I think it was pretty funny though, as I was doing research for the toy show tomorrow, and we're going to open up with some of this. And thanks again for that, Mike, for giving me the reminder that this was tomorrow. That how few toys were actually produced until really like 1992.
Mm-hmm.
They had very little produced. They didn't expect this to really be a runaway success. They didn't expect kids to be interested in this at all. The only thing they had out in '86 was a Power Wheels car. Well, it wasn't even by Power Wheels. It was by a different company. But they had a Power Wheels DeLorean, basically, and they had like a little radio control car. But in '86, that is literally all they had for Back to the Future. And that was actually, you know, a lot of it was reused for the second movie when they realized that that one was going to do well, as you know, also. But you didn't really start seeing extra shit until like '92 with like some of the kids club stuff and everything, and then side figures with the animated show.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you mentioned the radio control car that was reissued in '92. I believe it was. It could have been earlier than that for Back to the Future Part 2, because I remember seeing it in Toys R Us. And of course, you know, McDonald's was running a Back to the Future promotion when the animated series came out. And
then there was that huge lull in everything. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, out of nowhere, NECA started producing all kinds of figures, which I'm still kicking myself to this day that I didn't pick any of them up. The only other thing I picked up is Jada Toys did a
Mhm.
really awesome DeLorean, which you've seen. And they also did these little miniature die-casts ones, the like little nano cars with all three movies in one pack.
Yeah, I have seen that. I had just never ponied up the money to buy them.
I miss the days of having money to buy toys like that willy-nilly.
And yeah, I've seen clips of that Jimmy Kimmel episode with Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Of course, you know, they've also had appearances from Huey Lewis as the judge in the previous scene. And of course, Claudia Wells as Jennifer. The only reason why she didn't come back for the second one is because a family member was sick and she was taking care of that family member.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Gosh.
I don't know if you've seen this one either, Mike. So again, Jada Toys, they did a little mini diorama set of Back to the Future. So it's got like a
Mhm.
clock tower and everything. It's got the DeLorean on the front road.
No, I haven't seen that one before.
Just another thing I wish I had the money to go pick up.
Yeah.
What is it? A few $1,000s, a few $100s?
Nah, it's not that. It's probably like
Oh,
$30,
okay.
$40, maybe.
Oh.
Maybe. I don't even think it's that much. Usually Jada's pretty fairly priced.
I mean, even back in 2020, I didn't pick up that, retool of Sideswipe for the Transformers Back to the Future crossover because there are more serious things going
Gigabyte.
on.
Yeah, I've got him. Excellent, excellent version. I heard
I was well.
re-release
Speaking of
it.
that, yeah, I of course, Tommy, you've talked about the Voltron stuff, and it looks like there's still some pretty cool Voltron toys still being made, so that's good to see.
I wish they would go back and make the diecast ones.
Mm-hmm. And Jesse, if you want to watch the movie along with us, the Cosme link is pinned to the top of the chat.
Marty's father, this is Crispin Glover, right?
Yeah, Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. He actually had a good role in the first Charlie's Angels movie as the villain. Or was
It's
it the
funny
second
about-
one? No, it was the first
Funny
one.
about him, he's such a pain apparently to work with. That was Lily Thompson.
Lily Thompson.
She would only call him Crispin, and in her reality, he didn't really exist. So she hated him, and she had nothing to say about him afterwards because to her he was a ghost on the sets.
Yeah, it was.
And it's good to see Paul of Fandomology. Paul, if you want to watch the movie or even join the panel, you can click on the Cosme link to watch the movie. I can send you a link if you want to hop on the panel.
Hard, man. Yep.
How many of our parents had a living room similar to that growing up?
Tell me about it.
Yes.
Hey, Phil, what's up?
One of the
Phil.
things my parents had a lot of. You've probably seen those, Mike. The stupid Avon things, like the ones that look like trains and chess pieces and shit like that.
Oh gosh! Don't remind me.
Dang it, Uncle Joey.
It wasn't just my parents; it was my uncles that had it, and of course, their friends had it, and it's like, oh, come on. All right. Just wanted to throw it out there to you, Paul. Animated overload. Sorry. Hello. Hope everyone's doing well. We are. If you'd like to watch the movie, the Cosme link is pinned to the chat. You're more than welcome to.
It's funny too. Another thing about this movie, you see a lot of like endorsements from actual name brand products, where a lot of movies they just genericize all the products that are in the movie.
Yeah, like you would watch the sitcoms back in the day where they would pull out a carton of milk and all it would say is milk. It wouldn't have a brand name. You're seeing Diet Pepsi here. You're seeing Bud Light here. And even the vodka.
Yep.
And the makeup work that they used to make Leah Thompson look older. And
I love the parody that Family Guy did of this. It was quite funny.
yeah, they parodied Back to the Future a few times.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those movies that always winds up coming up in other type of shows or movies or stuff
Hmm.
like that. Like, oh, we're gonna, go back here, or where and maybe they might make reference to a Indiana Jones or something like that. A
Mhm.
lot of these movies that were absolute classics in the back in the day that
Yes.
everybody keeps saying, let's remake.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they're that way and why they're spoken of so many other times in other franchises because they were that damn good. They don't need to be remade ever.
No.
No, they don't.
And Jesse, thank you for stopping by. You have a great night.
See you, Jesse. Have a good one, man.
Take care. I love some of these scenes here.
Hmm. And the thing is, a developer recently bought the Point to Hills Mall, and
Hmm.
a lot of people are speculating
Sure.
what's going to happen to it. Because, like a lot of malls, unfortunately, it doesn't have the business anymore.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, you can go back through history, like all these different places. So one of the ones I used to go to as a kid all the time was in New Jersey, was the U.S. Route 1 indoor flea market,
Hmm.
which Kevin Smith had in Mallrats. So the front of the building
No,
looked just
okay.
like he had in the movie. Exactly
That's a
like
good
that. The
movie.
inside, not
Mhm.
so much. Didn't look anything like what he showed in there. I guess he couldn't film inside of it, but man, that place was amazing. Like all this stuff you
Mm.
can go in there back in the day when I was a kid, you can go there and you get the stuff directly from Japan or Korea. So you can get micro change or micro man. You can get the Go Lion set, the big die cast metal Go Lion before they, license out to Mattel to make in the States. Man, that
Well,
place went belly up and they turned it into a giant theater complex.
well, it also
Mm.
sucks, Tommy, when other people take over management and the place is just not the same anymore. That's what that gaming place used to be that my dad will always be like, I'm like, Dad, I got to get home. I got to do homework. No, no, we got to go to this gaming area. But it was a really good manager there, and at the time they had Magic and Warhammer and all that stuff, Tommy. And then in the back room you could start doing painting, start learning painting figures and stuff. So I was like, this is crazy.
Well, I think
All
a
this.
big problem. I
Mhm.
was going to say, I think a big problem with a lot of these people that have these development projects with these malls and everything like that. They don't
Mhm.
know what to do because they had it so well for so long that they were used to. Okay, this is the way it works. I don't want to change anything because it's working. It's working
Right.
until all of a sudden it's not working, and then by that point they're so stuck in. I got to keep it this way because that's the model that worked, that they don't think about,
Hmm.
well, what can I do to change this model to make it more appealing and attractive to bring more people in. I think that's the big problem. They get stuck in that whole idea. They get stuck in the past.
Well,
They,
also
they did.
the customer service too, Tommy. You ever go into like a comic book store and somebody says, "Oh, excuse me, guys," and they don't, "Hey, how's it going, guys? What can we help you with?" No. Like, customer service continues to go out the window. I've seen it at GameStop, I've seen it at other places, and I'm just like, "Well, this is lame." Uh, like, this those are important things, Tommy, and so you can wonder why these places also go under after a while. So,
I think as the younger generation started coming in, it really became a lot of that the throwaway mentality.
mhm,
Disposable this, disposable that, and I think
mhm,
they look at a lot of these older retail stores the same way. Like, they're disposable. Who cares?
right.
I don't know. To me, to this day, there's something more exciting. Like, just for example, the toy stuff. So
Right.
if I'm going
Hmm.
to go out to a store to find a toy, there's something I find more exciting about going out to a store and actually finding a toy or a figure or something that I'm looking for in the store in hand, as opposed to surfing on the web and trying to find it.
Yeah. Search it on the web, trying to find it. And even if you do find it, you know, they're asking an exorbitant amount of money for the product, even before shipping
Yes.
and handling. And
And then you got to worry about the postal delivery. Is it going to arrive in one piece?
mhm. At least if you get to find it at a store in person, you can check it out for yourself and kind of get an idea of the quality of the product, even if you don't have it exactly in hand. You're just looking at it through the window in the box.
Yeah.
One thing I've always loved about this movie is Alan Silvestri's score for it. Now, did anybody by in the chat or here on the panel, did you actually ever get to see a DeLorean in real life before?
Yes. Wasn't quite as impressive as I thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in this movie, and they, you know, make it look as good as it could look, but then you see it in person, it's like, this is it. And then you hear from people who own the car, and they're saying, "Nah, the car is a piece of shit." But it hasn't stopped people from, buying DeLoreans and making them into the time machine.
Well, wasn't there a company somebody had bought the DeLorean brand and they were trying to resell them again?
I think it's out of Texas where they're actually selling them again, and in some cases you can actually drive one that's been made into the time machine. I mean, I'm not gonna say that wouldn't be cool. That would be cool. And Jeff Sparks says, I think they had a replica of the Back to the Future DeLorean at a Hollywood casino I went to in Mississippi. But I've never seen the actual car drive around anywhere. No, the only time I've ever seen one is it was parked on the side of the road and it had a for sale sign.
Now, back in the day in DC,
Mhm.
at the Museum of Natural History, and then they had another wing for other stuff too. At one time, they used to bring in stuff like oddball stuff like this, like whether it was a DeLorean or whatever. One time I went in there, I went with my mother when I was younger, and they actually had all the props, the Jeeps, and all kinds of like the swamp from MASH from the TV show.
Nice.
They had a bunch of Klinger's dresses up on the wall. Like it was pretty hilarious to see.
I bet it was. Yeah, I think Christopher Lloyd was perfectly casted as Doc.
Now I can't picture anybody else playing that part, honestly. Yeah, I forgot. That's another one with the engine in the back.
Hmm. Yeah, I was thought it was interesting. The DeLorean has its engine in the back. Ferraris generally have an engine in the back. Lamborghinis. And
And
it
all
was
the
Andrew Probert who actually helped with some of the original designs for what the DeLorean would look like as the time machine. Oh yeah.
driving a Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Cheap guns at jam.
Yep. And when it shows the speedometer, the DeLoreans actually can't go up to 95. It's something they did for the movie.
Yeah, those governors on a lot of those cars would not let them even get up to what it said on the speedometer.
Yep. You better go fast, Marty. It's got a rocket launcher. And there you go. Well, we know one paradox that it's about to happen. Instead of twin pines, it's a lone pine. Hey, Pata. Hey, Bone. Of course, Marty's coming to the shock that his neighborhood doesn't exist in 1955. Now, in reality, from what I've been reading and what I've been listening to, as far as the commentary is concerned, Michael J. Fox wouldn't have been able to wheel a DeLorean behind that billboard with how heavy the car is. But notice the difference as far as the town of Hill Valley is concerned, how clean it is here in 1955 and how dirty it was in 1985.
Well, wait a minute, Mike. I think you're not taking one thing into consideration as far as Marty being able to push that car. The gravitational pull of the Earth apparently has gotten heavier in the future. Because Doc Brown will mention it.
Whoa, this is heavy.
There's that word again.
Heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing what new people do to neighborhoods because places used to be really clean and
Mm-hmm. Well, people used to take pride in how things looked.
yeah.
And of course, in 84, the clock tower was seen in Gremlins. I mean, it's been in
Mhm.
other
That's
TV
cool.
shows and movies as well, but unfortunately, that diner, or at least that particular facade, burned down in that fire back in 2008.
Yeah, speaking of that, I guess we're supposed to be having more fires this year again. Because it's been dry, so
Which is unfortunate.
it's unfortunate. It's nothing, don't worry about it.
Well, you got to take into account in 55 they had wristwatches, but nothing like what Marty's
Nothing
wearing.
like that, no. Hello.
Think, McFly, think.
Uh, hmm.
And of course, one of Biff's gang members is Billy Zane.
Oh yeah, I see that. That's crazy. Yeah. Don't be so gullible, McFly. Uh,
Yes, Marty, that's your old man. I'm hoping more directors and other people, writers and so on, start bringing back better banter. We need it. Yeah,
I
we
miss
do.
good banter. I will always argue about that.
It's a lost part of movie making.
It really is.
Hey, Gary, what's up, brother?
Another thing that's kind of lost with a lot of modern directors is attention to detail. So getting
Yes.
like all the background scenery and drops and
Mhm.
everything else that should be in the scenes, a lot of these
Yes.
guys don't pay attention to all of it anymore. So you
No.
wind up seeing things that shouldn't be there.
Right. Very true. Wait.
Hope you're doing well, Gary. Of course, this would become a running gag. I mean, how uncomfortable would you be if this is
Ay,
happening to you?
disturbing.
I would be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, very disturbing.
And just that added effect of seeing her in the mirror before she goes out the door.
Hmm.
Again, attention to detail.
This is. I love this part. Yeah. Oh, I remember this one. Uh,
And of course, the one kid's wearing the coonskin hat because of Davy Crockett.
uh-huh. Yes. uh, uh,
He's an idiot. That is her kid. That's her grandson.
Yeah, talking about how much things change in a window of time like that. I mean,
Mhm.
even here where I live, like in the decade I've been down here, things have changed drastically just in the
Of
past
course.
5 or 6 years. It's crazy.
Yep. Places close down, and then all these food places come up and other stuff. I mean, like you had talked about before, Tommy, even malls are different. Like there's some good stores there, but there's so many clothing stores, and which is fine to an extent. But I'm still surprised that Macy's is still around, Tommy. I feel like they're just limping along, but
I
I think that's
I
exactly
thought
what's
they were
happening.
already closed down. Tell you the truth, I mean,
Right.
like all when I was a kid,
Yeah.
it was Wanamaker's, Strawbridge's, Macy's, and there was one other big one, and I can't remember what it was. And then of course, it was like J.C. Penney that came a little bit
Yeah.
later on.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of those places I remember from when I was a kid, all gone.
Yes.
Woolworths was another big one when I was a kid.
Yeah, because when I grew up in the area I grew up in California, there was Broadway, there was the May Company, there was Robinson's, a couple other department stores too. Of course, J.C. Penney and Sears, and
Yeah. Best. Of course, Best turned into Best
Mhm.
Buy, which is crazy, but Best was still around a number of years. Yeah.
God, do you remember the one place that was out before GameStop and all those? It was called Electronics
Elec-
Boutique.
Yeah, Electronic
yep.
Boutique, of course. And then, do you remember the Capcom store? That was a thing too.
Oh,
Yep.
also software,
Yeah.
etc.
Yep. Yes.
Anybody remember that?
That was before Funko Land, and I don't know if you
Mhm.
guys had a Funko Land over there, but yeah.
The other store we had, Kitty City, Lionel Kitty
Hmm.
City.
Yep. I'll be right back.
All right. And Doc's like, how do you know that? He just told you.
Yeah, just imagine going back and telling your younger self all the crazy stuff that's going to happen
Mm-hmm.
when you get older. Would you believe it?
I wouldn't. Would you?
With all the weird shit I've seen, I don't think I would believe all of it. I'm like, yeah, you're pulling my leg.
I mean, telling your younger self things that happen, but also trying to resist the urge of telling your younger self everything that happens.
Yeah, you know what they say. Too much knowledge of what the future could bring could be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Of course, you notice how the caption's actually calling it what it is correctly, gigawatts instead of gigawatts. He understands, but he's already interfered with the timeline.
Yeah, maybe you're.
Yeah, but how many people actually did that when they were going through high school? I did it to somebody. It was done to me. It was done to someone else. And again, if anyone's just joining, the Cosme link is pinned to the top of the chat on YouTube and Rumble.
Goes to show you how much society changed from back then. A name on somebody's clothing indicated who it belonged to, not a name brand.
Mm-hmm. Lester, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. If you'd like to join the panel, just let me know and I'll send you the link.
Hey, Pops. Good to see you, man.
Pops, good to see
Lester.
you too, brother.
Good to see you guys.
Hey, everybody. Remember to go
It's
ahead
all right,
and share the
Pops.
link out there. Hit the like button.
Pops, happy birthday as well, brother.
Oh, happy birthday, Pops.
Happy birthday.
And yes, it does get better and better each time.
Oh, God, what was that movie? I watched it 80 times and it keeps getting better every time I see it.
How's the picture quality for everybody?
It's good. I
Excellent.
just don't want Cosme to froze here and there. It's been pretty good, though.
All right.
It's like the no whammies thing, Mike. No whammies, no whammies, no whammies.
Well, you know what I'll do, Gary? Since it's not showing up
Nope.
for some reason, I'll just put a new one in there. You got it, Lester. And all Dave has left is his legs.
Yes.
You can always count on Van Halen, especially in the 80s. George, how you doing? Hope you're doing well tonight.
What up, George?
Hey, George.
And you notice how when he was in the suit, how he had the hair dryer
Of
at the
course.
side, using it like a ray gun, and there were some people saying, "Well, where'd the hair dryer come from?" Came from Doc's luggage. Lester, welcome.
Hey, Lester.
Thanks, guys. Hey, thanks, guys.
How's it going?
How you doing, brother?
As best as I can. I mean, last month, learning my coworkers and boss were let go abruptly last month. Working through that and being part of a bare bones crew, almost literally. So being
Damn.
a one man wrecking crew for the most part. So
Man,
I mean,
that
go ahead.
company downsizing?
What's the popular phrase? You guys might have heard it. It's called restructuring.
No, okay.
Especially when you hear buzzwords like AI, productivity. Okay. It's not like I'm a xenophobe. It's just got to know how to do it right.
Yeah.
You just have to tell them you're better than all of them, and that's it, Lester.
Yeah.
This is also one of those movies where you have certain jokes that they work well because it's a setup.
Yep.
It's not just
There-
they say the same thing over and over again sometimes, and you see this a lot in current films now, shows. They overuse stuff and they don't set it up properly. It's very annoying.
They don't set it up properly. There's no real payoff.
That's right.
How would you like to drive that Ford?
Pretty cool.
Never gets old.
No.
Well, I was going to say, I had to wait a moment, but I don't know if you would want to drive that car. Power steering didn't become the norm for most cars until the 60s.
No,
And I don't know.
and
Yeah, I
with
don't know
that
if you've
car,
ever-
It would have been a struggle.
I
have
don't know if you've ever.
driven another car
tried.
before. It's a bitch.
Yeah, it stinks.
Man, I'm still waiting for my flying car, Tommy. I'm very disappointed.
I'm still waiting for the hoverboards.
Exactly. Well, Transformers actually had the hoverboard out sooner than they did in these movies. It was like 2006. They had a hoverboard because Daniel had one, and in these movies, it's 2012, I think it is.
So, how's your personal life been going, Lester?
Well, it's funny being in the remote economy. I'm realizing it's not a matter of mixing business and pleasure, but it's a balancing of that. So a lot of my day, especially being skeleton crew, it's making sure I hit those deadlines and then unwind. But thankfully, I found some spots like I got to visit my folks in SoCal for 2 weeks, and then part of that was doing a martial arts workshop and relieved that I wasn't too sore until I walked around the floors of Costco. I was like, why the hell am I feeling I can't walk?
Yeah.
Because the workshop wasn't super intense. We weren't sparring. We weren't doing any scenario or what do you call responsive drills. It was just drilling, cooperative drilling, where you just rep it. But it doesn't help that I am the smallest guy in the group, where a lot of these guys are either mounting me or I gotta find the right leverage to take them down. You know, that just doing that over and over.
Yeah.
But in terms of acquisitions, well, funny, I finally got to mail my friend a phone I meant to gift maybe a year ago now. Because it just seems to like the stars seem to align right about now. Where he flew stateside, he's been in the Chicago area, I think, and that saved me a butt ton of shipping instead of shipping it to his residence in Thailand. And then in the meantime, I just finished binging Ghost in the Shell standalone complex.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
thinking they only
Very
had
nice.
2 seasons,
Mhm.
and then it just prompted me to get the I think it was a Blu-ray. I don't think they had anything on. They have anything in 4K, but with the scuttlebutt about 4K itself, it's almost like you got to pick your spots as to what 4K to get. You know what I mean? So I just think it's one of those things now. People are just riding on the coattails of the name or label of 4K. Slap it on a box and charge whatever.
Well, how many
premium.
people? Right.
Go
And
ahead.
how many? Go ahead.
No, you were saying you were about to pose a hypothetical.
Yes. How many people even can see that these movies are 4K or the screen is 4K? And I mean, if people want to get that, that's cool. I mean, I'm sure you can check the sharpness and the brightness and whatever, but really, how many people can tell? Yeah.
Well, isn't that
The
like a
funny-
lot of other things? Everybody's just following the latest fad when it comes to all this stuff. Because when they switched over from DVD to Blu-ray, the
Right.
actual detail enhancements was really was minimal for the most part.
But I also think this is funny when my parents did the whole remodel. That included everything inside the house. So one of those was they bought an HD projection TV, which in hindsight I kind of miss. Maybe same thing about the plasma TV. I get LED is the rage because the whole green movement. I will not go further on that in your channel, Mike. Don't want to get you unnecessarily demonetized or anything like that. But talking about the scuttlebutt regarding projection TVs at the time was you won't see it unless you watch it from a distance. And I can see what the dudes were saying when I watched, especially when they started pulling out the HD channels, because there was that transition around 03, 04 where
Yep.
you had digital cable, right?
Yep.
And then slowly but surely they started introducing the HD grade channels of the same channel. So you had HBO HD, CBS HD, and you could see that, particularly for projection. Don't know what suits which viewing or screen tech. So projection, they talk about you got to look at it from a distance in order to see the difference. I don't know what it is with LED or LCD, OLED technology, whether you got to see it from a distance or you got to see it up close. But I did see the difference, particularly when you go from standard definition to high def.
Sure.
Particularly 720 versus 1080, and of course
Right.
the whole scuttlebutt about 1080i versus 720p. Why certain networks like Fox, for example, for the longest time, I don't know if it's still the thing now, but back in the day, it was Fox would broadcast their stuff in 720p versus 1080i, because the stigma about 1080i was that you get the interlacing and the frame rates were what they were versus 720p. Of course, the whole thing about that is progressive and you didn't have the interlacing effect of the image. And of course, with that, you would see things at a smoother frame rate. In hindsight, I missed my CRT because I didn't have those strictures. I didn't have the restriction that my monitor had to be at a specific resolution. I like to be able to switch my resolution and be able to switch my refresh rate on a whim, if that makes sense. But anyway, but yeah, with Ghost in the Shell, I couldn't believe how forward-thinking the writers were with the whole arc. And I'm thinking, and the voice acting, like I just commented in a stream, I think it was yesterday or even, no, was it? No, it was Sunday. And I said, voice acting's gone down the tube. Particularly when you talk about the English dub.
Well, it depends, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the Ghost in the Shell dubbing, I can roll with it. I didn't think about this English voice actor didn't fit the character on screen. Like
Yeah.
Kusanagi's voice actress was perfect. Like I had no gripes. Bato, no gripes. Everybody's voice actor fit the character, and the story flowed. And I made an observation, like apparently something within the culture is like, I don't want to offend people. How do I get to tell people to do better and not hurt their feelings? Are they so afraid that they'll just let anything slide? And you look at this, like Back to the Future, you watch this almost on a yearly basis. It doesn't get old.
No, it doesn't.
No.
It's unapologetically made for its time, and I mean, it's still what we talked about at the top of the show, that it still kind of speaks to people now, and it still holds up, I think. But when you're talking about if you're worried about offending people, unfortunately, there's no way that you're not going to offend anybody. So it's always best to be able to speak your mind. Censoring your own ideas is like one of the worst things that you could ever do.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, the thing it's funny when and I always say I'm going to put something together on my channel, but I had a lot of moving parts, life-wise, work-wise, whatever-wise, and I just took a training that I needed for my side gig, and it just irritated me to no end about how to provide inclusive care. And if you run a facility, like a foster care home, for example, that the residents have a certain degree of inviolable rights. And yeah, they do provide caveats where you have to provide a use case why you need to put limits on these rights. Mm-hmm. And then the other unit was about how to provide inclusive care. And so to sum that description up, they try to cover providing care for those belonging to those letters on a hijacked flag, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'll provide inclusive care. And I was about to say, well, I'll treat everyone equally, just like Shizen, right?
Right.
But it's like, okay. And I thought about this for the longest time in terms of, wait, this is classic right here. Mm-hmm.
And that begs the question. What was she doing kissing her brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lorraine, what kind of double life are you leading?
So anyway, I just I slogged through almost an hour's long training, mm-hmm. hearing testimonials of folks belonging to that milieu. But to me, it kind of flips. It flips the whole MLK mindset, right? And right. So the whole thing about the don't judge a book by its cover or by the color of the skin, and it's just people just think about the color of the of the people's genetics, right?
Mm.
Right.
Whereas, what's my character? And going back to this idea of writing good stuff, you got to write stakes. You got to make me care. You have to sell on me, why does this and that aspect you're trying to peddle, why does it matter? Or how does it affect the story? How does it affect the journey? Whatever journey. And I'm just thinking back, just watching those scenes I caught up on, that this is one of the rare movies where you got development for a hero's journey for two characters almost at once. So we're looking at George and we're looking at Marty's character. So it's almost like an homage to Star Wars without being one, but anyway, I commented in some streams saying, wake me up when you write stakes around those aspects you want to peddle, because the other side of that is, when you get down to it, what is going to end up mattering for people who don't belong to that milieu and for those who do, they're almost going to be identical to what is going to matter. So, for example, like, we always talk about the content of the character. Like they always say, beauty is skin deep. Okay, so what if someone is letter X or belongs to letter Y? Okay, does that define their character? My closest friends is along that letter spectrum of letters. Okay, but he is one of the most masculine people I've met, and one of the most, I guess you can call it, most conservative folks you'll meet. I mean, he challenges me more to be a man than I'm pretty sure a lot of other people who I wasn't sure where they fell on the spectrum. Like, you can never assume. And that's why they talk about the vocal minority. And as much as I hate painting with a broad brush, no section of the minority has monopoly on the complete picture of that whole milieu. So what I'm trying to get at is, we all don't want to be, I don't think we all want to be douchebags, right? You're like,
no, we don't, but there are certain circumstances where you have to be a douchebag.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's something I've learned in life. I may not want to be, but there are certain circumstances, situations where you have to bring that douchebag side of yourself out.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's just like,
otherwise you're gonna get walked over.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just like, I watched the show from the creator of Cowboy Bebop recently, Lester, and my brother and I, we watched. This is just another example, and this is why a lot of these shows turn into a mess. So, not going too deep into it, but it was just, it was like, oh wow, Lucy Christian is in this as a voice, and she's voiced a lot of different characters, including a character in My Hero Academia and so on. And it's like, it was a story, and then there's an agenda, and then it's like, this is a mess.
Yeah.
You got some of these, of course, people and of course the media defending this stuff, and then they're talking about, oh, there should be a season 2. No, there shouldn't.
Yeah.
And so it's like 6 episodes in or whatever, and even like the series finale, they end up going back to the same place they were 6 episodes. Oh, guess where the villain was? And I'm like, what kind of writing is this, man? It's really just disappointing, Lester. And when people just continue to accept this and defend this, all we do is get more and more of this. It never stops.
No,
And
and even if
Yeah.
we do, it's almost like they're almost blind to losing their audience.
right.
And it's like if you got an agenda, and it's one thing I remember reading Dickinson, it's almost 2 decades now, or longer than that, actually, I would say since high school, reading that one poem of Emily Dickinson's
Mm.
pointing out you got to bring them around to the truth, because
Right.
if you just flash it, it just blinds them, right? So it's just a matter of intelligently crafting a story about your agenda. Like if you're so hell bent on your agenda, you kind of, it becomes the thing. Versus like right now, we just witnessed a turning point for George, that
Mhm.
he's building up his you might call his ability to stand up. And it's not just because, okay, that's a man doing it, but I would go back to Ghost in the Shell. That you kind of see some character development for Kusanagi, right? That she had some bouts throughout that, at least for standalone complex. You know, it's been a while since I watched the original Ghost in the Shell, but it wasn't smooth sailing for her and Section 9. Yeah. And I was hooked because I didn't know what would happen between the first season and the second season. Or I would say even before the first season ended, I didn't know what to expect. Like, wow. But at the same time, if it ended the way I thought it was going to, I would have thought that is a great depressing ending.
Mm-hmm.
Back to
So when people say like, "Oh, you gotta be optimistic about this," is like, how much more can we be optimistic about a lot of these new shows when all they do is force an agenda on people? They just, the show goes all over the place when it's not following the main plot. It's just a mess. It's like, give me a break with this stuff.
Well, I think a lot of times you have with a lot of these shows, and it's not even so much about how bad the show is. A lot of it has to do with brand recognition. It's why, like, I don't care how anybody else thinks about it, and I've been pretty open about that. I don't care what anybody thinks about Disney and what they do. I can't stand everything they do. I've never really been a fan of Disney to begin with. Disney always tends to put their stink all over everything. They just can't help themselves.
Right.
And whether you like it or not, sitting there and like beating it over somebody's head about how bad it is not going to help matters. And people got to find the stuff out for themselves. And you're always going to have certain people that are just loyal to the brand recognition of that brand, regardless of how bad it smells. And they will always defend it and make excuses for it. And it's the same thing with a lot of things, like, what you're talking about, Lester, where you can't really you can't jam it down their throats. And I think you see that a lot on certain political spectrums. That we see right now, where everything has to be forced down your throat and you need to accept this or you're this, that, or the other thing. Look, I tell everybody, you can like whatever you want to like. I'm going to give you my opinions. You may agree or you may not. You may disagree with them, but I'm going to give you my thoughts on this, why I think it's bad. You make your own decisions of whether or not you're going to like it. And, in the end, we can still have a conversation about it as long as you're not like letting yourself getting too far drawn to a type of personality that does not allow any kind of argument or any kind of discussion on the subject.
Yeah,
there was one thing I was always told growing up is when you ask somebody for their opinion, be prepared to hear one of two things: either something you want to hear or something you don't want to hear.
Right.
Because we all have our different opinions. There are certain Transformers figures that I like, others I don't like.
Yeah. I just think of the locus of authority. It's a phrase I got during a talk, and I think what a lot has gone on is that locus of authority has gotten skewed, especially because of a lot of these companies that and this is just a remark and an observation, because I've been part of small companies, and I know as they get bigger and bigger, the organ loses its life. The organs lose their oxygen, if that makes sense, right? So there's a complacency, and there is, in many respects, a misuse of the goodwill established, that they could just rest. But anyway, the thing about these companies is they don't have any life anymore because they've gotten so big, right? And I think and I was going to say before I forget, we grew up hearing about the sore loser. Okay, that's fine. You don't want to be a sour sport, poor sport. But there is a thing called a sore winner.
Oh, of course.
And this is what I think has been going on. And I think certain talking heads, because they haven't garnered that trust, or that there's a disdain, however that's been derived, natural, forced, however, that because it's coming from a certain mouth, that people will tune out to narratives and phrases that they don't know when they won, or at least it's never good enough for them. That it's that sense of victimhood that people don't want to hear about. It's almost a manufactured perpetual state of victimhood, that there's still an uphill battle to fight. And yes, there are uphill battles to fight constantly throughout life, but it's not the battles you think they are. It's the battles of fighting your own pride, your own complacency. And it's funny, I've been listening to a lot of Jocko Willink, whatever you think about him, but I think he said something well when he said, comfort is the enemy of freedom. And in some ways, he's right. But
I mean, I recently saw Megan 2.0, and I don't think it's nearly as good as the first one. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that it doesn't know what it wants to be.
Exactly.
That's another problem with a lot of this stuff. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It's just I don't.
Right.
What it comes down to also, Lester, is the arrogance and the entitlement and who have taken over a lot of these companies. It doesn't matter if it's gaming companies. It doesn't matter what it is. But they are like, we can do this better. We can do this better than the other people. We can, and they don't, man. And it's just they don't try, and they're not. There's all kinds of stuff. If they would learn to be more humbled, I think that they could get even more stuff accomplished. Dude, even when I watched season 2 of Arcane, you could just tell that the writers changed, and they didn't really have a very good direction. It went all over the place.
I never even finished Arcane season 2.
No,
it really doesn't matter. And so when I tell people all the time, I says, why is it that most people I talk to always have the same opinion? They have mixed feelings on this. It's like, oh, it's amazing, one person I know says, or two people. That's great if you believe that. But it still doesn't change the fact that the season is a mess to many people.
Right.
And it's like, how many times do we have to go through this? Like, I like Andor, but even other people, I'll tell them, I just would like more action in this show. That's all.
Right.
Yeah. That's just me, and I get it. It can just be drama, but it still has Star Wars in the title. So I would like more action. I understand it can build that way, but it would just be nice that there would be more episodes that have more action in it. So,
I mean, it's almost like it's almost as though I gotta. I don't know if I gotta make it my life's mission, but at least point people to a dictionary, for crying out loud, because certain terms, man, it just bugs me that people don't pick up a dictionary and realize X or Y and whatever when it comes to these things. Like I often joke like I was going to dig up the definition in a dictionary for pronoun, and especially in light of the training I had to do, and I'm thinking, Like, really? You know, what people don't get is if you're running a communal space, to use my side gig as an example, if you are running a space featuring more than one person and you want to make yourself a freedom-loving person, you have to understand everybody else, including that one person. They have a vote.
Mm-hmm.
And they can cast it however they want. So the one thing that people lose sight of when they think of freedom is, okay, if you're a freedom-loving person, you have to kind of restrain yourself in order to respect the freedom of others. Right. And that's why laws are made. I don't like peddling the same talking points, but I thought about this whole thing about feelings, that people are so wed to their feelings that always, because in an attempt to avoid encountering tragedy, for example, they want to prevent the existence of inevitable realities. Okay? Like, they think preventing a tragedy will do better for society. I'm not saying, I'm not championing for bad events to happen, but because you're swung in such an extreme direction that you're losing sight of what causes these violent, what really will prevent or deter someone from committing that act. And I'm not saying bring it back word for word, but a sense of crime and punishment. Because clearly, decades or maybe century of legislation should have taught us that no matter amount of preventive legislation is going to prevent acts from happening. Like, I'm all for preventing the action, but where does the source of the prevention come from? That's where I take issue. Mm-hmm. You just can't write things into prevention. You got to, again, like a good story, you got to create stakes. You have to make them think about what's at stake. What are they at the risk of losing if they violate that? Which is kind of funny because, what would be a proper punishment or the basis for a proper punishment? Well, you abused your freedom to the point because you violated someone else's freedom. You encroached upon their space. So what's going to stop me from that behavior? I need that kind of punishment that will make me say, oh damn, I gotta change my behavior, or I gotta stop that behavior because I'm being a threat to not just the other, but to myself, right? I mean, and that's why I find the whole legal system needing an overhaul and not just other stuff, you know what I mean? So I know that's a long-winded well, looks like FKHC has spoken my mind. Yeah. Well, in certain ways you can say that, to hell with their feelings, but you have to be, part of the respect of freedom is consideration of the feelings, because the last thing you want to do is break their joy. But you don't do that. You don't treat that in such an extreme way that you don't correct them. It's got to be a harmonization. It's got to be a balance. You got to sting them without killing them. You know what I mean? I don't know
Mhm.
if I'm. I don't know
Well,
if I'm making.
one of the things that was lost along the way and lost in translation over the years, and actually, I think the translation of it was probably just burned in a river somewhere, is the amount of respect that people had for other people just in general. So, I mean,
Right.
you look at the type of respect that maybe you used to get even in the 70s and early 80s when you walked into a store, you were greeted, you were
Mhm.
welcomed, and everything like that. How many stores do you really see doing that now? I mean, hell, some
Only
of these
some.
restaurants you even go into, you might not get
Yes.
that. So I mean,
Yeah.
if right there, that's just a loss in civility to other people, and it's
Mhm.
not that you have to agree with everything that everybody else thinks and the way that they live. You don't have to, but at the same
Right.
token, you don't have to go out of your way to be an absolute pain in the ass. And I think that's something that a lot of people just they don't understand anymore because they think that their way is the only way, and
Right.
that's the end of the subject.
I'm right. You're wrong. No matter what you say, you're still wrong. It's the attitude a lot of people seem to have nowadays.
Well, going back to the point about a circular movement in terms of providing the truth or providing, I don't know about the truth, but providing things. I think with the internet, and this is a question I posed maybe a month or more, that do we regret the internet the way we have it now? Because we talk about wild, wild west. Things have gotten really wild because uh, access has become overloaded. Before we craved, we took advantage of whatever access we could get on, whether that's like an actor or an actress we crushed on, or
Mhm.
if we're a fan of their film, we want to know when their next one is. But that was not a given. It was such a luxury. We're
Yeah,
losing
it
that
was
sense of,
because you
yeah.
couldn't always guarantee that Entertainment Tonight, for example, would have a segment on the actor in their next movie coming out.
Mhm.
And now with, I hate the word social media. It used to be social networking, and now the whole landscape doesn't, like I just joked with someone about Facebook and Instagram. It's almost though Facebook doesn't know what it wants to be or doesn't know what Instagram is to be. Because my thought of Instagram when it started, before it was hijacked, and just like Facebook before it got hijacked, that you clearly knew what the purpose of Instagram was. And yeah, are there trappings of what it once was? Yeah, and that's what I keep it to. But particularly because of how widespread access became, particularly with Facebook, when it used to be just college people, and you valued that because you you felt the value of getting an invite to Facebook. Like, not that you're kind of cliquish, but that you were gifted something you thought, oh, I get to be part of something special. It doesn't have to
Mhm.
be exclusive, but I remember it was like it was yesterday. I remember a few weeks after I got the invite from my brother when we were still in college. Then I noticed my mom was on there. I was like, what? What? And then I noticed people in my circle of family friends like, that girl ain't 18. I know how old she is. Like, what the hell? Right?
Right.
So it's morphed and devolved in such where access is no longer valued, or at least it's not properly appraised in terms of how valuable access should be, or accessible how accessible people should be. So, what's the point of having Entertainment Tonight? What's the point of having talk shows when personalities like actresses, whatever, they can open their Instagram account and they can just give the word themselves. So, what's the point of having a PR agency, right?
Well, I mean, these shows are all supposed to be entertaining, man, and they take that away. There's some stuff they have like actors roundtable and stuff, and I'm sure that can be pretty interesting. But once again, it's just Entertainment Weekly, like, or Entertainment Tonight, or any of that stuff. It just used to be more interesting, but like the stories they have, and they're willing to have some stupid agenda that they never had before in any of these shows, and that right there hurts the entertainment value of it. It's just when
Right,
they want to take anything away because a lot of people are mad, so we need to take this, and they become the basically the censor police. Oh, this is wrong,
right,
this
right.
is wrong, and this is wrong. and it's just these shows fall apart. But I mean, Entertainment Tonight is still going on. Is
I mean,
it as good as it used to be? I don't know. I don't
No,
watch it.
I don't think it is. From the last time I watched it,
to my surprise, the funny thing is, like, you talk about authority and the establishment of goodwill that has been eroded and misused and abused by what you might call the mainstream outlets, right? I stumbled upon Michael Rosenbaum and other, I think it's Vanward Media, that on the flip side of having the wider access and the actors can speak more on their own behalves, is they can be a little bit more candid. And some of these are the best bits of intel you can gather. Like Michael Rosenbaum interviewed like random actors, especially around the world of Smallville. I don't know if he separates the two worlds. I think he did. Forgot the name of his Smallville podcast is. I think they're still going, but I like that informal scuttlebutt and some of the stuff I stumbled upon Facebook Reels, like Dante Bosco, the guy who played Rufio. It's even more hilarious when he talks to guys like millennials, zillennials, and talking about what it was like in those days, in the early days, and what have you. But it's stuff like that where you're not preaching, you're not shouting from the rooftop about such and such, but it's just grounded, down to earth, right?
With these stories, the politics, if you want to inject the politics, it needs to fit into the story, not just be some kind of
exactly
stupid agenda.
And this is why a lot of people are turned off, or at least they become so skeptical of a lot of the mainstream outlets and their authority, the weight of their authority in many respects. At least that's how I'm looking at it with respect to why they don't just rely on one source. I remember it used to be. I remember in the late 90s, everyone was tuning into CNN because that was the trusted voice in news. But because of all that's gone on in the last 20, 30 years, we're thankful we have other news outlets. Just because we built up this degree of skepticism where I just can't have one outlet. And then even now that we're on alternative channels and media, right? So it's like, sorry, your authority has been squandered. I'm not blind to your attempt to ball and chain me, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, nowadays, like I've been flipping through Facebook pages on classic looking cars, and I can't believe 90s and late 90s is classic now. Just the design, like everyone's homogenous these days. I can't tell if, like, the only way I can tell a brand apart now is by their logo, and thankfully they've got that.
It's just things are just ugly, man. Like they're just It's like I think Baron mentioned this. Like things are just boring looking.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
Baron and I were talking about it this past Sunday. How McDonald's and Burger Kings and all those fast food restaurants look like euthanasia centers.
Yeah. No, and plus
it's not even that. You look at courts, they're ugly. You look at colors on uniforms, they're ugly. On sports teams, they're ugly, and these colors they mix are ugly. And people can be like, "Oh, well, no, it sucks."
Well, I mean, part of that started in the mid to late 90s. I mean, you guys remember what was that called? The K car? Every car wound up looking like a K car. They all had this ugly, boxy, rectangular look to them for a while.
I think the Fiat is still an ugly looking design, but it's just a box. It's just boring looking.
Like, I think that I don't know if I definitely give it to the Cybertruck, but that is the fuggliest looking car I've ever seen.
Mhm.
Like I would even take a Pinto, and I forgot what a Pinto looked like.
My dad had a
Right.
Pinto. God, those things were so small. The back hatch thing. So, you know, me and my friends, we were teenagers. The old man would take us out and drop us off. Like I was talking about US Route 1 Indoor Flea Market at the top of the show. He would take us out there sometimes, and we would all cram into the back of the Pinto, and that because that hatchbacks area, we'd call it like the troop transport, and be all smashed in like sardines.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I did love when Universal released this on Blu-ray and DVD is the fact that they didn't put the "to be continued" at the end of this movie. They left it
Right.
as
good.
it originally
Good.
was.
Interesting.
Good.
Because they didn't even know that they were going to have a second movie.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
This
have
is supposed to be a
talked about
one-off.
that. Yeah. Right.
And it could have ended up that way, but that's the thing. It was a good because that talk about a good segue, right? It either because the segue isn't so obvious, but it gives the possibility. Oh yeah, there might be more coming, right? So,
Mhm.
No, I mean, there was a lot of movies back in the day. They weren't sure if they were going to be runaway successes. I mean, even the original Star Wars, there was no
Right.
plan for a second one. Like
Right.
that was a complete story, completely compounded within itself. And you know, like that's why I was really surprised. Like after this thing did so well, that they didn't make toys right away, and they waited until '86 before they even put out anything at all.
Right.
Like you know, that's a perfect example of continue your own adventures. You know, with these characters.
You know, the one thing that strikes me, because if I were honest, I don't think I caught Star Wars even on tape. I think I might have relied on a lot of network television. And it's fascinating given that it was the original Star Wars was pushed out in 77. And to know even in 88 or 89, I was still getting exposed to Star Wars. I still remember, I think I caught Return of the Jedi because it was being advertised on NBC. I think that's where I remember watching it.
Well, the funny thing about that first Star Wars showing, and I've gotten into this with a few people, like everybody always seems to remember 77, and that thing wasn't playing everywhere in 77. It was limited release across the country, and it was only certain theaters that had it. Not everybody had it. So in the area that I lived out in Jersey, there was no place even close to us that it was playing it. Not reasonably close, I should say. So we had to wait until they re-released it in 78 to be able to go see it.
Well, here's the even funnier thing, right? I don't know if you guys remember this in maybe your school library or just a general library, but my school library back in elementary, this was mid-late 80s when I think it was both the first school I was cognizant of going to and then my primary one that I finished my up to 6th grade and whatever. But I remember collecting or checking out books at the school library on Star Wars, WWF. Yes, I'll call it that. Sorry. Whatever.
It's still WWF. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah,
It's not
thank
World
you.
Wildlife.
But see,
it's World Wrestling Federation.
but see, even though I may not have read the books as dutifully as I read books selectively nowadays, that's how I got exposed. And now, granted, I don't know what I was aware of or aware of what drew me to Star Wars. It might have been that mystique of Vader, because I guess I think I was 7, 8-ish when we were scuttlebutting about Return of the Jedi, right? And I think I was aware of Empire Strikes Back back then. And it's just something that provides a series of a sense of haunt that I started flipping through the pictures and all that. And it didn't get old going through the 90s. And I was even more intrigued when they brought out the EU. My friend was reading Heir to the Empire very early on. And my first exposure to that actually was not Heir to the Empire, but Dark Force Rises, or Dark Force Rising, with and I was reading the synopsis on the back and talking about Mara Jade. Like that's the other thing too. Like people don't know how to make good names. It's weird. I wonder what they're feeding, and I don't know. I'm as bit about as quality food as the next person, but I really wonder what they're peddling in the schools these days, as far as like, why can't you come up with a good name? It doesn't seem to matter if we're talking about
uncreativity. I mean, and it has a lot of different kids being glued to their phones and everything like that. I seen something on Twitter the other day, and I just died laughing. You know, it's that old school thing in me.
Well,
this mother had a daughter sitting at the dining room table. She was Asian. She could have been Japanese. She could have been Korean. Doesn't matter. Her daughter sitting there at the dining room table, and she's got her phone in her face while she's eating. The mother comes up behind her with duct tape, and she tapes her hands in her face.
I saw that the other day. I had started laughing. Because I was thinking to myself, gosh, growing up, I mean, for all of us, if we were on a cell phone, if we had them like they do today, growing up, and we were eating dinner at the table with our cell phones, we would have seen our parents grab it out of our hand and chuck it so fast.
Well, that's the funny thing. I was mapping out the evolution of what service was like in my recollection, because I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 21, 22, however old I was, 23. But I just loosely remember what the prerogatives of the carriers were, right? Because I'm just going to say, for the carriers at the time, minutes were your thing. Like I think you might have remembered those commercials in the early 2000s about. I mean, remember, my favorite one is. Go ahead.
3 minutes on the weekend, and
yeah. And
well, that's why a lot of us, when we got our first cell phones, maybe you did too, Lester. I still had a beeper at the time if people wanted to get a hold of me. You know, instead of calling me directly on a cell phone, hey, hit my beeper and I'll call you back from a payphone, because there were still payphones at the time.
Again, it just goes back to this proper valuation. Like, we're losing a sense of value. Like, I remember my mom when she got her first cell phone, she goes, "I got a 15-minute plan. Only call me for emergencies, and then use a payphone." I used to call collect because I didn't have any coins on me, right? You know, again, it goes talking about bad marketing. Marketing's gone to crapper for. I don't know. I haven't kept track, but marketing seems to have gone down the crapper in the sense that I may not have been a Sprint adopter, but I still remember to this day that commercial with those teenage girls, 7, because that was the thing that drew you in, because you wanted to know when you got to use your free minutes. Like Verizon, AT&T at the time, T-Mobile, I think their standard was 9 to 9, right? But Sprint, I think it was Sprint, who said, "We're going to do ours at 7." And of course, the other one was, and it might have been Sprint too that did this, but there was that woman monologuing about being in love with a phone. Like, again, I would not have bought the product, but that commercial was memorable.
Well, what about when they started doing the other commercials, Lester? And since you're on that subject, remember when they came out with the carryover minutes, though?
Yeah, that was another thing. And I remember, and it's funny how the models have shifted. Like for the carriers now, airtime doesn't mean jack, right? If you happen to go over whatever plan you got, yeah, you're going to pay an overage, but data's become the premium. I remember back in the internet in the early days of dial-up, remember those free coasters we got from AOL? You get 150 minutes free. Like,
Dude, I
they
still have a few of those, the old school discs with the AOL. Like, my dad was a hoarder of everything. So there's a few of those AOL, America Online freaking disc packages with free service.
but that was just like the beginning. Like, it taught you to like really value when you had your opportunity to go online. Now, I don't know how to keep that same mentality or the same essence of such a mentality in today's climate, because again, minutes aren't the premium. It's, in this case, just like the phone carriers, it's data consumption. And it's funny how they went from what's our premium? It's the amount of time you spend online. And we're going to bill you by whatever minute. And if you link up with us, you'll get remember, I think one of the deals was you got a free month. And it's funny because the joke at the time when we were talking about, oh yeah, we get a free month or unlimited minutes, just stay connected on the internet if it's unlimited. Whereas, even when we were talking about how to work around what they call the peak time, right?
Right.
When does that charge start accruing, or when does that minute start getting allotted? Is it as soon as they pick up, or is it simply a matter of ringing? And I was just playing it like the way my mom explained at the time. As long as they don't pick up, you don't get charged. So it's like call, ring, 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 click. That way we didn't get charged because we had to be so mindful of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just again, it's weird. This sense of valuation it's all over the map, to be honest. And as much as I appreciate the internet we have now, there are many things about it that if I knew better, I would have spoken differently about it. Like, the fact that both my sister and my brother failed in their ventures of trying to keep their kids off screens, it's almost unavoidable. Like my nephew, who's just 4, he knows how to he knows his way around an iPad, but and it's funny, people don't want to play the balancing act as tough as it is, but people talk about security concerns. Well, as my old bait and switch sales job said, it's that dirty Ethernet cable. In this case, it's your Wi-Fi connection, that bloody whatever cable you use to connect to the outside world, right? So it's tricky.
It is.
Yeah, and people just don't want to have to wrestle with that, because I know wrestling with things is tough. I know I wrestle with it every day. Like I just pretty much caught up with my current state of my bank account and my bookkeeping, and it's just my God, you have to be so aware of what you owe, when you owe. And I know people say, why don't you use a simpleton version of that? Watch what comes in and out of your bank account. No, like knowing what I know, I'm sorry, I've been so warped by the accounting world, and as the joke is, it's in a cruel world out there. For those who don't know, accrual accounting is basically it accounts for everything before the cash changes hands. So cash basis is, I got $20 in my can, right? I pay someone with that cash, and now I don't have it. Whereas if you look ahead and you plan on an accrual basis, okay, that's going to be drawn out on this date. So that gives you opportunities to think about, okay, where can I get a stream of income if I need it between now and whatever date I need to account for? And plus, okay, that may or may not draw from my account right away. So, it's just a way to manage your books. So the more I know. That's why I use a bookkeeping software.
Yeah, you have to nowadays. You have to use what resources are available to keep track of passwords, to keep track of multiple phone numbers nowadays. Yes, you can store them all on your phone, but you can also still keep them on your computer if you want to, and use that
Yeah.
as your, you know, address book and phone number book. I mean, that's what we used to carry around with us back in the day. We had the smaller ones, or we would have one at home right next to the phone where we would look into our phone number and address book to get somebody's number.
What, you didn't walk around with the Wheel of Doom on your back, the old-fashioned Rolodex? Oh, for shame.
We
I
had a Rolodex too, Tommy. Believe me.
I still remember when we had to look up. We didn't have the internet, right? And we didn't have that data readily available. And knowing what I know now, and you know this, Mike, working retail, that
Mhm.
you just can't go off what's said on the website. Because I worked in a small company, you order an X amount of goods, and with the expectation that you don't want things to fail. But there's a reason why when they talk about mass distribution, you talk about bad batches. And so you're not going to tell everybody outright, I have this many available. You're going to flub it so that you can protect your own, you can cover your ass pretty much,
Mhm.
protect your assets. Because as I was explained, we keep the quote extras on hand. So in case we got to replace defective product. And that
Yep.
was what I learned being in the RMA department at the small company I once worked for. But anyway, going back to the old days of looking things up, like, hey, especially when you go to the store and you see it out of the shelf, and then but in order to save time, you go into the yellow pages, white pages, and you just figure, okay, let's call this. You dig up Toys R Us,
Mhm.
and like, you got this game? Yeah, Street Fighter 2 in stock. By God, it was like tooth and nail trying to get your hands on a massively popular game. Do you have
Yeah, I
this?
mean, when you had to get something fixed, you had to look up in the phone book to see, okay, who is one open, and two, did they have any appointments available so you can say it's your car, bring your
Yeah,
car in and get it fixed.
yeah, yeah.
It
So
wasn't like it is nowadays where you can go to their website, schedule an appointment, and boom, you're done. No, you had to actually look in the phone book for the number for the particular place you wanted, call them, find out what they had available, and then try to work it around your schedule.
That's something
and
else that I think has been kind of lost to time too. Is you're kind of hinting also on the customer service aspect of it when you're talking about you would call stores and look for stuff, and you used to be able to get it where they would hold an item for you.
Hmm.
Or
right, right,
if
right,
you
right.
went to the store and found something, you used to be able to almost run like a line of credit with the store, and you'd be able to get a layaway. So if it was an expensive item, you didn't have to have all the cash up at once. You didn't have to worry about it not being there. You could pay it off a little,
A little
every
bit at
couple
a
of weeks
time,
or
and
every month or whatever. Yeah, like all that stuff is gone now in the service industry for the most part.
I mean that's how our parents were able to find things for us for our birthdays and Christmas. They would put on layaway.
Yeah, I remember those words. Like, but you get it now and you pay later. Um, yeah, and it's funny. There's only, you have these tricks of the trade. Like, you only let them know, yeah, you got one. We only have one available when you might have three, and it's a tough thing. You gotta find a way to phrase it without.
Hmm.
And yeah, you have to turn away a customer. Well, that just means like, yeah, apparently there's enough demand, and it's funny when people either undershoot or overshoot. It's not an exact science as much as we want to make it out to be. because again, in a freedom-loving society, everybody has a vote.
Very true.
And the more I don't know about embracing it, but the more we acknowledge and accept that reality, I would hope people would be a little less butthurt when they don't get what they want.
But see, the thing is, nowadays we expect to get what we want. Maybe not all of us, but there is a portion of society that expects to get everything that they want right then and there. And when you tell them, I'm sorry, we don't have it in stock, they start throwing a fit. I had that happen working in retail.
Yeah. Or, I was discussing the front and back ends of customer service. And I'm of I am very torn because I can be of two minds about front and back end customer service. Front end, of course, you put the smiley disposition, you say the right things, and you put a smile on your face and do the wave gesture. But then there's something to be said about doing the job right. And it did bug me, and it kind of still does when people describe me as I'm super technical. I don't know about that. I just do the job right, do the job well, and the less disputes you'll have. Like one of my biggest bugaboos is not being able to match the code to the product, whether we're talking SKU or UPC. Right? I don't know, because I think you said you might have worked at a shoe store or Foot Locker. I forget where you worked in the past, but I would imagine
it was one of the bigger retail chains, and I know a lot of people who I used to work with have left in recent years.
But just the thing, and especially with we always talk about I want to be on the progressive side of things. Well, first you got to just describe and define progress, because apparently I think that's even getting spun around in terms of what does it mean to really progress. Like I've said it over the last maybe year now, like we're working off an old business model in terms of the 5-day work week. Other countries, like if you follow him, Tony from Analog Toys, he works, I think his thing is 8 on, 7 off, or something to that effect, where that seems a lot more balanced than 5 on, 2 off, right? It's like, for all the stuff you talk about progress, like, and you see a changing economy before your very eyes, America, especially thanks to the Rona, with the remote economy, it's like, especially if two companies are the same, like if you got a remote client, it's like, can you meet me at this time? Okay, I'll block off time. Okay, and I think I mentioned like balancing business and pleasure, because as I think about the way I need to be able to spend my weekend freely. I got a blend of what I need to do at home, and it's almost like that's going to be part of my work day, chores and what have you. I'm sorry, it's not like I go to the office and I unwind when I get home from the office. Sorry, my office is however many steps from my bedroom, right? It's like there's no commute, and then because I'm salaried, and I'll take my lunch when I need. I'll take my lunch when I need to. I'll work when I need to work. Like the whole thing about the bully thing, I get it. That was like designed for rough and tough blue collar work.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I joke about mental drain can also mean physical drain, or vice versa. But at the same time, with a lot of people doing a lot of white collar work, maybe gray collar, because they go between desk and, for example, like I did in the .com, warehouse work. So I'll type orders on the computer, and then I'll go to the warehouse and grab it. That was like the best of both worlds. So I wasn't so monotonous, or I wasn't so overworked, right?
Yeah, yeah. But
Anyway,
getting back to tonight's movie,
yeah,
okay, we've all watched it multiple times, including tonight. Still holds up,
hell yeah.
Tommy.
I don't know why I haven't bought on media yet. But anyway, go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, it holds up. This is one of the way I judge on which movies I'm going to get in physical, physical format, which is always very important. People get all your favorite movies in physical format. This way, they can't mess with them. It's how rewatchable a movie is, and this is one of those movies that's always rewatchable. Like when you said, "Hey, can you join?" I mean, yeah, I love Back to the Future. I have a collection disc sitting over there.
Yeah.
It's like a special edition collection disc where it's a big giant box and it's got the light up flux capacitor on the front.
I have that same one.
Dude, and like I had to get that once I seen it too. Like this is definitely something that holds up, and it's not even so much the quality of the film as far as like if it's a little grainy or nothing like that. It's the story elements that hold up over time because it tells such a really good story. And you're talking about the idea of time travel, which is fantastic and everything. His friendship with Doc Brown and how he's trying to find a way to save Doc Brown at the end of the movie. Then you're talking about the growth of a character like George McFly, like how he goes from being walked on to being somebody who's not able to only stand up for himself, but also the girl that he winds up falling in love with. I mean, there are a whole ton of really good elements in this film that it's timeless. It truly is.
And they're set up so early on in the movie. It's not like they just throw it out to you straight out of left field in the middle of the movie. No. Even in the opening credits, they're setting things up just by looking at the clocks.
Right.
The dialogue sets things up.
Right.
And you don't get that from a lot of movies nowadays. And
No,
I wish they would go back to making movies, in the vein of Back to the Future. I'm not saying it has to be a time travel story, but no, take a lesson from Back to the Future, how you do a proper setup, a beginning, middle, and end, and proper payoff.
And this is one of the things that I think, going back to my point of loss of valuation, and especially in the scuttlebutt about prospective actors playing specific roles in specific movies, we haven't had an actor, or at least I don't know if I can count him on my hand, who can carry a film on his own. And I would even say, like I joked about Denzel not saving Gladiator 2, even he couldn't do that. But it's as Paul Chato said, that there had to be a good vehicle. So that means, again, going back to our points about good writing, you have to put the people, and I can't believe the thought escaped me, but in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the half joke is position before submission, right? Sorry, that's a bad Brazilian accent, if that even can be considered a Brazilian accent or Portuguese. But the idea, position before submission. Like you got to put yourself in position in order to make something successful. Like, you're not going to be shining if you're not put in position to shine. And that starts with a good writing, good direction, good everything, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be. It's like me and various pop tracks, and I can respect someone who may not have the greatest vocal chops. Maybe that's not what I'm looking for in a good track, depending on the genre. Sometimes for some tracks, it's going to be the instrumental arrangement, or even I hate it, but not terribly. But it's not. I'm not a fan of a lot of digital arrangements. But if they pull it off well, I'll give credit where it's due. But what I'm saying is, you got to put things in their proper position in order for it to succeed. That's what we've lamented over the however many minutes, at least when I joined, scuttlebutting about, why is this so timeless? Why does it still speak even for us today? Because they understood what they wanted to convey. And
they did. And it shows why this movie shouldn't be remade, because you won't be able to capture And yes, pun intended, lightning in the bottle.
And even I said, I joked in a halfway manner. I always like using the term half joke, but I said, wake me, like, when it comes down to it, we are, for anyone belonging to that alphabet milieu, when it comes down to it, what's going to be at stake is kind of going to be identical to what's at stake for those who don't belong. So we're not so much different. Any angst, any anxieties, any senses of being bullied, if you can map that into making it important to the story, more power to you. But they don't know how to do that. That's something that, like I said, I don't know what they're pumping into the institutions in terms of, hey, bruh, get better. I was telling someone last Sunday, like, I remember my first creative writing. I got a D, and I was even questioned in comment, do you even know how to write? Like, ouch. Talk about tears going down my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But hey, I picked myself up after moping, and I got better. I don't know. I think I still ended up with a C, but who cares? What I learned, sorry folks, but grades are just a means of showing how you can play the game. You know, just because you played the game well doesn't mean you got a lot from your coursework. Sorry.
Mike,
Anyway.
Mike, I just wanted to say that lightning in the bottle comment, that was nice.
Yeah.
You really left them on the hook with that one.
Oh, yeah. Cash, what about you? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if Cash is back yet. But
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
You look at this movie and how they set things up, and you know how Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gill were part of a failure before this movie came out. They had multiple failures actually before this movie came out, and the one before Back to the Future was Used Cars.
Hmm.
Which
So
I like that movie.
Yeah, it's good. It's real good. So this is like their last chance, so to speak, to try to put out a hit, and little did they know they would put out a hit. And you know, you always hear, especially in the commentary or you read the behind the scenes, how they originally wanted to send Marty back, and it was a nuclear bomb test, and how that they wanted to do that, but then they decided it would be lightning. And you know, what was the time machine going to be? At one point, they were thinking it was going to be a refrigerator, but then they got to thinking, no, we don't want kids going into refrigerators.
I'm not really sure if making kids go into the DeLorean is much safer, though.
No. Not from the stories I've heard about driving a DeLorean. And but this movie is still an enjoyable movie. You don't necessarily have to watch the other two after this if you don't want to, but it is nice that this particular trilogy is still left untouched.
Yeah.
They haven't tried to add a fourth movie to it. They haven't tried to reboot it. I hope it stays that way.
And isn't that part of developing that degree of timelessness? Especially because the identity is clear. Whereas with all these retcons and reimagining the origin, like I think I posted on my Twix account about what more do we need to know about Miyagi after I saw the headline about a Miyagi prequel being approved or thumbed up. What else do we need to know beyond the fact he and Homeboy were fighting over the same girl? Homie served in the army and befriended a fellow serviceman whose daughter he taught karate.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, that he and that other homeboy, they were fighting over the same girl. They made up. What else do we need to know? Oh yeah, he also happened to have a wife and child who happened to die. Like, what else is there? What else is left to be known?
There really isn't anything.
it's like, not to drag in religion, but it's like, why did they only capture the last 3 years of Christ's life on earth? Because I'm sure the same question you pose to anybody, any one of us. Why would they want to know anything within the first 10 years of or even first few years? I only got my first few years of my life in photo albums. I'm sorry. I don't remember what it was like to grow up in the Philippines because I left it when I was a year old. Even in my first few years in America, I don't remember what that was like. I don't even remember what I was like as a kid. I just know that I was inundated with music, whether on a cassette or on vinyl. Like, I still remember the days I listened to Bambi on vinyl. And that's why I guess I'm more of an audio guy than I am a visual guy. And I was joking, like, music video was a great concept in certain respects, but I think it really affected how I viewed what the music video is trying to paint. Like, I looked more at the music video than listening to the song.
Yeah,
that's how I felt music video. But anyway, yeah.
but you mentioned music. You listen to the music for the soundtrack for this movie, whether it be the score or any of the songs that were included. You know exactly what scenes certain songs were included. You know, certain themes were being played in the movie just by listening to it. You don't have to see the movie to know.
Right. And it's like, we didn't need to know Marty's origin story. But I'm pretty sure his origin story is like a lot of us. We were born, we were kids, there was a good percentage chance we were bratty. High school, good chance a lot of us were rebellious. And maybe for those who were not so bratty or trying to be model citizens, I'm sure there were inner demons we were fighting. I got that sense from my valedictorian of an older sister. And even though she was being parroted by my mom as a means of comparison for the other three of us, she had her own things she wanted to break out. So it's like, but do we need to know that?
No, we don't need to know anything about Marty's life before he met Doc. The only tidbit we get into Marty's early life was he was 8 years old when he set fire to the living room rug. We don't need to see that happen.
No, and that's why, and this is why, and I joke about it often now, is that somehow the art of the flashback is a lost skill, or not about lost, but it probably was discarded. Why? I don't know. Like that's what a good movie will do. Like, why is, like, in Karate Kid Part 2, why is there animosity? Why is there a hesitation on the part of Miyagi to go back? Why did he leave Okinawa? It explains it right there. I think it might have been explained in the first one, but definitely it was fleshed out in the second one. Right? What else do we need to know?
Even in Karate Kid Legends, they explain how, Jackie Chan's character even knew Mr. Miyagi. And I thought it was nice, but do I think it was necessary? No.
No, they could have done that in the first one with Jaden Smith. That could have, and I'm sorry, going back to what I said about, the casting choices, right? Whether there's an actor that can carry a film, but I'm sorry. There's just so much. There's just so much in terms of casting choices that they just look too young for the part. Like, when I look at his face, it's like, the dude doesn't look like he's... I mean, I get the comment, okay? I should know. I get the comment, like, I don't look any older than 30. Something along those lines. I mean, you've seen my mug. You're seeing the mug right now. I don't know. People compliment me. I don't know if it's genuine, but they say, Like I remember Tom Connor saying, "Oh, you don't look like you're in your 40s," and I go, "Thank you," because I don't know how I feel. I still get carded time to time, but yeah, it's just like when I looked at the poster of Ironheart. Well, I don't know if it was a genuine poster, but on Midnight's Edge they spoofed it, and I go, she looks like she didn't finish high school or just about to finish high school. There isn't that draw, right? Like, and plus, again, a good vehicle. Like, there's something, I don't know if it's a limitation, it might be, but I'm realizing out of all the Hong Kong people, in terms of the movie scene, I would take Sammo Hung in a hot minute over Jackie Chan. Because Sammo Hung showed that he can do both the serious and the comedy. I mean, I've seen Jackie Chan in A New Police Story, but his serious was a little over dramatic. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I can't take him. I think the only one that I kind of give him credit for was the movie The Foreigner. So just going back, like when, and I hate to put it this way, like, can we be a little bit more prejudicial? Not saying to be prejudiced, but at least have better. This is something my college prof mentioned, because there was a statue of Confucius, and there was a phrase, and he said that's a bad translation about being indiscriminate. Because he says you got to have a degree of discrimination in order to draw something good out, if that makes sense. We have to practice the degree of discrimination. Why else do we have our circle of friends the way we do? Why are we closer to certain friends than others? Right? There has to be a degree of discrimination. Sorry. So it's like, come on, guys, use your discrimination muscles to figure, okay, is this guy going to put butts in the seats? And it's funny, listening to more Scuttlebutt, like, yeah, I still would take Sammo Hung over a Donnie Yen after the Scuttlebutt. I heard about how wooden Donnie Yen was is as an actor. It's like, why do you think he hasn't really? I mean, okay, I'll give him his IP Man films. I'll give him that. But other than that, I've seen his older stuff. Yeah, he was okay in Iron Monkey, but I think he had another person in Ensemble. So it's just, find something that will draw people. And I'm sorry, but I don't know what the chemistry was like between Machio's character and Jackie Chan, but I mean, I guess you can say Tucker and Chan had much better chemistry than any other of the films that I watched Jackie Chan in. Like, I still remember, what was it, that movie with Jennifer Love Hewitt, The Tuxedo? Nah, he was okay.
I'll be honest. The relationship between Jackie Chan and Daniel LaRusso's characters, it was just basically the fact that they both knew Mr. Miyagi at different points in his life.
And there was no shot at developing a real interpersonal chemistry then, huh?
Not really.
No.
The only commonality that the two of them had is that they had this kid who was going into the tournament and they needed to train him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something, I forgot where I got that bit of insight about chemistry between actors. But that counts for something. That's why I think that casting worked. Just like when I binged Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, that chemistry, I couldn't put my finger on it, but it worked. I couldn't wait to get to the next episode, and even I would sacrifice some sleeping time, which I rarely do nowadays compared to what I used to do. Given what I've recovered from, or still recovering from, but yeah, you don't get that. you just, it's like, be don't be afraid to swap out your cast members like they did with Back to the Future. And I know part of it was contractual things surrounding, at least if I understood the background scuttlebutt, like they casted someone else before they landed Michael J. Because I think the scuttlebutt was
They wanted
wanted
Michael J. Fox, but
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox's schedule with family ties prevented him from originally joining the production, and then they tried it with Eric Stoltz. It wasn't working out, so they fired him, and they made it work with Michael J. Fox, where Michael J. Fox would go film Family Ties during the day,
Yeah.
and then at night he would film Back to the Future with very little sleep.
And they tried a backup plan, and apparently that backup plan did not work. But it's like, don't be afraid to pull the trigger. And that's one thing I learned from my godbrother, who's also my parish's choir director. He even said, I am responsible, and part of my responsibility is not to spare the feelings. If it comes down to that, I can't spare feelings because of the care I've been given responsibility for. And by the way, I'm looking at Ronnie G. I'm like, thank you, because I'm 44 now, and it does help that I shave years off my appearance. I mean, it can be a chore, but it can be an adventure depending on how one decides to shave their facial and their head space.
You young kids and all your problems.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a 53-year-old pig now. I'm a 53-year-old pig.
I'm 47 years old. I've got gray in my beard, and I'm keeping that gray in my beard. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I just couldn't
It's a
believe
badge
how
of
much.
honor.
Yes. It's like me and my wanting to grow whatever facial hair I could. It's like I'm a little jealous of my younger bro because the Punnett square was in his favor, where he can actually grow more facial hair around his beard area than I could. I get whiskers, around the cheek area, and I tried waiting. No, sorry, that part of the Punnett square did not fall on you. But anyway, it's like when I do grow the Fu Manchu, it's like, yeah, I don't try to hide the gray. I mean, why would I want to? Because I still feel awkward if I'm in contact with someone younger. It's like the gray will kind of provide that buffer zone, if you will. Like, oh, he's that old, or at least they won't assume and treat me like a little kid, like I don't know Jack. Sorry.
Yeah, one time, you'd go out and you'd get carded. Being being older and knowing, you get carded and you're like, it's like, this is kind of cool. Once you get past a certain age, though, you're getting carded and you're like, this is just irritating at this point. I got a little bit of gray here. Why am I getting carded for this?
Exactly, especially when you go into places where one of their requirements is they card everybody. It's like, really? You can tell I'm over 21.
Yep.
I've got bags under my eyes. What does that tell you?
Oh, the bags under your eyes have bags. Carry out bags.
Yeah, but gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. But before we do, if there's anything you'd like to promote, Tommy, go ahead and promote.
Of course, as always, we're going to have Collectible Pass tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. You guys want to see some cool toys, stop on by, check it out. This pig always puts as much work, and he's got a whole collective of pigs behind him that helps out. And of course, joined by our other panelists. We're going to start the show off with, thanks to Mike for reminding me again, we're going to start off with a little tribute to the 40th anniversary, since tomorrow will technically be the day for it. So, we're going to start off with that, and then we're going to get in all the other toy fun that we normally do on the show. So thanks everybody that's joined us. Remember, if you haven't already, smash the like button, reshare the link out there so Mike can get some repeat views. And big thanks to everybody up on here on the panel with us, and I hope that you all have a good evening.
All right. Thank you very much, Tommy, for taking the time to be with us tonight, too. Really appreciate it. And It's always fun to be on with you, whether it's on your channel, whether it's on my channel, and hanging
Yeah.
out and talking. But of course, Lester, I
Oh,
appreciate you
well,
joining us tonight. And if you have anything or anyone you'd like to promote, please go ahead.
well, just maybe one channel out of the many. The Kung Fu Genius. There's many things I agree with him on, certain things I don't, but he's a good listen because he delves into what I've been into over a good bit of my life, that being Bruce Lee, and he got to interview some very important personalities within that milieu. So, like, we're talking about a guy tabbed as the historian. He had access to a lot of his daytimers, and one of the people prominent in the Hong Kong movie scene, Bay Logan, and I don't
I've heard of
know
him.
how many. Yeah, Bay Logan, and especially, and he did an interview before Richard Norton passed away with Richard Norton. Very interesting chap. So it's just I took for granted these B movie actors and actresses, but yeah, when you peel the onion, it's just a bowl of insight. And um, this idea of being a historian, that's got me down this history kick. Like, I've been meaning to put together a video. What's Lester been up to for the last year and a half since he put out a video? And I go, I have all these books. How do I want to present that? Because that's pretty much what it got me down that kind of rabbit hole. History, science, and not so much like chemistry and that kind of science, but martial science, things like that. And yeah, but yeah, check out the Kung Fu Genius if you haven't. And another guy, maybe that fat samurai guy. You go, I think it's spelled PH fat, not FA fat, but
Okay.
fat samurai guy. Yeah,
Let me
because
see if I can find him.
yeah, he goes by he goes by Preston, and he does a lot of movie based scuttlebutt. Particularly his favorite appears genre being not just martial arts or action, but he loves his horror. So if any of you guys like the horror stuff or into that, that's your jam. He gets into it. I think he interviewed a few directors already of various films, so check him out.
I
Oh, go ahead.
was just saying, I think I found that samurai guy. What was the name of the
Oh,
other?
cool.
that you're-
It's called the Kung Fu Genius. He might have his name in the description. His name Sifu Alex Richter.
All right, let me see if I can find the Kung Fu
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
Give me a second to find those links.
Yeah, sure.
I think I found it. I think
Oh, good,
I found
good.
it.
Cool.
All right, so let me grab his link and I'll post it on the
Appreciate
YouTube side, X side, and Rumble side. No problem.
I appreciate that.
It's how we help each other grow, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
Okay, got it on the Rumble and X side. Let me just put it on the YouTube side.
Oh, and this last one before I really forget. You might have seen her around in other spheres within YouTube, but I think her moniker is Charlotte. Charlotte, come on, I should know it. Night Star Werewolf, something along those lines. Let me go ahead and see. But knowing that she's a creative of different sorts, I came across her her stuff. Let me go see if I can pull her up in a search result.
If you do, put her link in the private chat and then I'll put it out for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh, there we go. Let's see. I think this will appreciate your patience, guys.
No problem.
Yeah.
You have to have patience in life.
Yep.
All right.
Oh wait, did I not paste it right? Let me see if that.
I
Patience?
should be able to. I should be able to find it this way.
Patience? I gotta have patience now, Mike. Ah, Jesus! I wish somebody would have told me that before I jumped on this stream.
Yeah, that's funny.
I always say that because I'm a Cub fan, so I had to have patience as a Cub fan.
Oh, I hear you.
As long as you don't start singing it like Axl Rose, we're okay.
All right, I think I got. Yeah, I do have her
Yeah.
because actually she just recently followed me over on Instagram.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, she out of a good grace of her heart, oh, well, I mean, she tossed a link out, and we had a pretty good conversation about different topics because I didn't know she was a songwriter, and I have often flirted with writing, but I understood that I had to have a lot of time on my hands, a lot of time, which, given I work a day job, not really possible. So yeah.
All right, so all those links are out there.
Nice.
So please head over to those following links and give those folks a sub.
Yep.
It helps us all out. That's for sure. All right. So I'm just double checking a couple things.
Sure.
And then I'll start promoting what's coming up on Pacific414 because Cash is still away and I haven't gotten a response from him on Discord yet. So
Gotcha.
As far as what's coming up on Pacific414, tomorrow I will be playing more WrestleQuest. And that'll start at 6 p.m. Eastern. I don't know how close I am to the end of the game, but it's one of those games where I am having fun playing it and I want to see it to the end. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And then Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern, it'll be the 6th episode of The Adventure Continues, the Star Trek discussion, where on Saturday, Baron Orman Tag will be the guest of the show, and he and I invite you all to join us as we watch and discuss The Doomsday Machine. And again, that's at 8 p.m. Eastern. That'll be on the YouTube channel, the Rumble channel, and of course on X. And then, of course, we have Sunday's edition of Pop Talk. And with it being the end of the 4th of July weekend holiday, we are going to watch Top Gun Maverick. So feel free to come on by for that. If you want to be on the panel, just let me know and I can send you the invite link. I've got no problem doing that. Yeah. And then coming up next Tuesday will be more Rise of the Ronin. Now, before we get out of here, I did promise Padawannabe and a few other people last night when I was playing Rise of the Ronin that I would give you all an update as far as the watch hours are concerned.
Okay.
For the channel. So let me bring that up. And let me make that a little bigger. Full screen. So there you see it. As of June 27th, which was last Friday, the watch hours are at 3,869. We need 4,000 to even qualify for ad revenue, but even when we meet that qualification, we still have to be approved.
Yeah.
So we are just looking for 131 more watch hours to reach that 4,000 watch hour plateau. And
Yeah.
the best way to do it is to go through all the playlists that pertain to this channel, not the guest appearance playlists, unless you want to check those out and subscribe to those channels that I have been on. Go right ahead. But if you watch any of the playlists that are on the channel and just keep them on in the background, you don't even have to really watch them. Just keep them running in the background if you want. We
Yeah.
can get up to that.
Never, Mike. You should never shoot for what you need. You got to do YouTube math. So you got to like double, maybe even triple that number.
I know, but with the way my life has been, Tommy, I don't take anything for granted. You know, if it gets there, it gets there. If it doesn't, it doesn't. No
Yeah.
big deal. But you know, just run all the playlists in the background, and you know, once we get up to the 4,000 watch hours, then I can apply for the ad revenue. And as I've said countless times, because I'm dead set on doing this. Just like with the memberships, whatever little bit of ad revenue that the channel gets, it goes right back into the channel so we can have future watch parties and I can rent the movies that I don't have. Now, in this case, for tonight, I do have the Back to the Future films, but if it's a movie I
Right.
don't have, then I can put it back in and we can rent the movies. If there's, you know, a game you want me to check out, I can rent the game. Of course, paying for StreamYards, it'll go back into that because that goes directly back into the channel.
Right. Right.
It's not something that I plan on ever pocketing in my own pocket. Nope, it goes right back into the channel.
Right.
And also, you know, I do want to get with the channel members, and that day that I'll be getting with the channel members for our next member stream will be on July 12th,
Okay.
Saturday, July 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And I want to hear your thoughts on some ideas that I have. But I want to ask all of you first, but
Okay.
that's pretty much what we're looking at as far as watch hours, 139. But like Tommy said, you got to pretty much double that with the way things are because this goes year to year. So whatever I made in watch hours last year for the channel,
Yeah.
those will go away once that date comes up. So again, if you just put any of the playlists on in the background, let them run. You don't actually have to watch it, just let them run. Those
Yeah.
hours will add up because this has actually jumped up from the last time I did any kind of update.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I did an update, it was at 3,791 hours, and this has really jumped up in the last week. And I know Padawannabe has had a lot of the videos playing in the background, and I'm sure there's plenty more that have been doing it. But everybody,
Yeah.
when we reach 4,000, and as long as I'm approved, we'll have a celebration. It'll be an open panel. Anybody who wants to come on can come on. We'll have a good time sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying the conversation. Because
Cool.
I can't do this without you guys. Everybody who pops in, you know, Tommy pops in, Tommy retweets every time I share out when the streams are going on. You know, Lester, you pop by when you can. DJ pops by when he can. Lady Mist. You know, so many good people do support the channel and stop by when they can. You know, take the time to come on for shows like tonight as a guest, and it's much appreciated. So, with that being said, everybody, before we get out of here, I do want to thank those people who were here tonight. Of course, we had Jet Sparks here. Glad to have you here, brother. Of course, Lady Mist. Glad to have you here as well. And don't forget, Lady Mist, that in August we will be watching The Relic. And there's also another movie that was recommended to me that I'm thinking about for September. So I'm gonna look into it a little bit more, and we will determine if that's going to be part of the September watch party list. But I think there's a good chance it will. And Jesse Torres, thank you very much for being here. Paul of Phantomology, thank you for being here tonight. And also want to thank Phil McCracken for being here. Thank you, Phil. Over on Rumble, we had Animation Overload. Thank you for being here, Animation Overload. And also Gary. Gary, it's always your fault. You know that. You know, anytime any of us die in Repo, it's always your fault. Just kidding, man. Of course, Lester, thank you for being here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it for
Pop?
the invite.
No problem. Pops, thank you for stopping by. I hope you're having a wonderful birthday, and I hope the rest of the week is very good for you. And, of course, with it being 4th of July week, I hope it's good for everybody. And George Lucas, thank you for being here, brother. And Spocko, thanks for being here, brother. I gotta get you on for the adventure continues soon. And DJ Ronnie G, thank you for being here, brother. Greatly appreciate everybody. And let me just see. The Relic, that's going to be in August. Let me look at the schedule again so I get the date right. Because I've already made that schedule. And so give me 1 second, lady miss. And I'll look at it real quick. Let's see. I have the Relic planned for August 27th at 6 p.m. Eastern, so that's a Wednesday. So that's what will be happening in August. And, of course, after we watch Top Gun Maverick this month, we will then watch The Hunt for Red October in the middle of the month. And then that will be followed by the Happy Gilmore double feature, where we're going to watch the first Happy Gilmore, and then we're going to see what Happy Gilmore 2 has in store for us. I'm hoping it's good, but with it being modern Hollywood, you never know. All right. But again, everybody, thank you for being here. Make sure you subscribe to Lester San Jose, The Skeptic Tank, Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective, Cash Money of the Phantom Hooligans, Baron Orman Tag. Subscribe to everybody who's been in the chat on both YouTube and Rumble. And remember, here on Pacific414, when I'm playing a game, don't ever give up on me playing that game, because just when you do, you might miss something. Have a good night, all.
Pacific414 Pop Talk is here. Sit back and relax and join the conversation. We got Baron